sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In.
And now, on with the show.
Hey everybody, what's up, and welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In, episode 43. This is a review cast. I have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about in this episode, along with the reviews. I also have some news about some really cool stuff coming up for Average Joe's Drive-In that I can finally talk about. I finally got it kind of confirmed and what's going to be going on. So I'm going to tell you about that stuff a little later on in the show. But now, let's kick it off with a little bit of movie review time. And first up, sorry about the crinkling paper, but I wrote my review down on this. And I want to review and get things started with a film that I thoroughly enjoy. And that is 2010's Predators.
What's the last thing you remembered?
All of a sudden there was a light, and then I was falling.
Who are you?
I was supposed to be executed 2 days ago.
And I was in combat. So was I.
Black Ops.
Yakuza.
We need to work as a team.
Does this look like a team-orientated group of individuals to you?
They can hear you, smell you, and see you. We were chosen.
Chosen for what? This planet is a game preserve. And we're the game.
They learn. They adapt. You want to survive? Dig in deep.
Who's your daddy now?
How do we kill them?
However you can.
This film was directed by Nimrod Antal, has a runtime of 107 minutes, rated R, stars Adrian Brody, Lawrence Fishburne, and Topher Grace, and Alice Brea. I watched this on Blu-ray. The synopsis. A group of elite military warriors parachute into an unfamiliar jungle and are hunted by members of a merciless alien race. This is one of those movies I can't help but like despite its flaws. While not as good as the original Predator, I feel it is slightly better than Predator 2. Now, Predator 2 is a movie that, I don't know, you get a lot of really mixed feelings about that one. Some people don't seem to like it. Some people really love it. I kind of fall in between on that one. There really isn't a ton of plot to this one. It partially rehashes moments from the original film, including the music. And there are moments of stupidity that make you kind of scratch your head and wonder why. But it is loaded with lots of action and solid effects. Predators is a film that's grown on me over time. It has become a staple film in my rotation of films I view every year or two. A great film to throw on and enjoy when I want a flick with plenty of action and I don't want to have to worry about paying close attention to detail. My rating on this is a 6.0 out of 10. IMDb rating 6.4 out of 10. Next up, I want to talk about 2017's Mayhem.
witnessing a model citizen here, transformed into a brutal, bloodthirsty, killing machine!
Welcome to the home of Towers and Smythe Consulting. TSC is a firm fueled by greed, duplicity, and moral decay.
I'm gonna need some scouts!
What the hell are you doing?
Firing you.
I'm not leaving this building until I plead my case.
Sure. Good luck with that.
What the hell is going on?
Say hello to the ID7 virus. Stress hormone levels rise, causing inhibitions to drop and basic instincts to rise to the surface.
All traces of the virus should be eliminated in approximately 8 hours.
What are we supposed to do for the next 8 hours?
Try to remain calm.
Hey, extreme measures, right?
This is our shot.
I'm offering 150 grand for Cho's head.
We're talking about murder here. You should be offering at least 450.
Him?
Yup.
You want to do this the hard way? You're enjoying this, aren't you?
I just kicked his ass!
This film was directed by Joe Lynch, has a runtime of 86 minutes, rated R, stars Stephen Yeun, Samara Weaving, and Stephen Brand. I watched this one on Blu-ray. Synopsis. Derek Cho is having a really bad day. After being unjustly fired from his job, he discovers that the law firm's building is under quarantine for a mysterious and dangerous virus. Chaos erupts throughout the office as the victims of the disease begin acting out their wildest impulses. Joining forces with a former client who has a grudge of her own, Derek savagely fights tooth and nail to get to the executives on the top floor and settle the score once and for all. Once in a while, you see one of those movies that leave you with a big, dumb grin on your face. For me, this was one of those movies. I don't know how much about this other than the basic premise. I was interested to see what Stephen Yeun could pull off in a feature film, as I hadn't seen him in anything but The Walking Dead. He was one of my favorite characters on that show, so that made me even more excited for this. He's awesome. His performance, along with Tamara Weaving's, both really sold it. The support cast was excellent and filled in the gaps nicely. One thing that I really loved about it was the fact it doesn't waste time. It gets to the point, moves quickly, and comes to a resolution without dragging things out. This is a prime example of a film knowing that sometimes less is more. This could have easily been a 2-hour-plus film, especially with the layout and premise. I'm glad they didn't go that route. Over the top without going to those off-putting places, despite how crazy and violent it is, it doesn't feel dark. What makes the film work is it manages to sneak in those little moments of comedy at just the right times to lighten the tone, without taking away from what's going on. Kind of often when you get a film that like this or similar, either the comedy takes away from the action or vice versa. This is really a perfect balance of that. I highly recommend this one if you want something different, quick, and entertaining. I am already looking forward to watching this one again. My rating for this one was an 8 out of 10. The IMDb rating for this was a 6.3 out of 10. Up next, an 80s sort of classic, I guess you could say, depending on who you talk to, and that is 1986's Cobra.
Society is breeding a new kind of criminal. It's also breeding a new kind of cop. Meet Cobra. He does the job nobody wants.
Did you use unnecessary deadly force?
I used everything I had.
Do you know you have an attitude problem?
Yeah, but it's just a little one. You think you would recognize me if you saw me again?
The tall one?
Yeah, the one that wants to kill you.
Do what you have to do to get a lead on this maniac.
And if I find him?
Do what you do best.
Stallone is Cobra, the strong arm of the law.
This film was directed by George P. Cosmatos, has a runtime of 87 minutes, rated R, stars Sylvester Stallone, Brigitte Nielsen, and Renee Santoni. I watched this one on VHS. Synopsis. Local policeman Lieutenant Marion Cobra Cobretti finds himself at the center of a spate of murders carried out by a secret society called New Order. Killers who select weak members of society for extermination. As the murder rate rises, Cobra takes model Ingrid into protective custody after she witnesses New Order's leader in action. As Cobra falls for Ingrid, they find shelter in a small town, but must soon fight for survival. This one is straight out of the Cannon Films vault. If you're unfamiliar with who or what Cannon Films was all about, I highly suggest the excellent documentary Electric Boogaloo, The Wild Untold Story of Cannon Films. If you grew up in the 80s, you more than likely were inundated by Cannon releases, even if you weren't aware of who they were. This is a straight-up 80s action movie cheese at its finest. In a nutshell, it represents pretty much what Cannon Films were known for. Cheesy but entertaining films. I hadn't seen this one since the HBO days when I was growing up. Like a good chunk of Cannon Films, this borders on being just painfully bad but manages to be entertaining. There are cheesy 80s catchphrases and one-liners galore. Loads of over-the-top violence. For those of you in the know, see what I did there? And plenty of corny bad dialogue. It was everything I was in the mood for, a nostalgic, blissful walk down memory lane, accompanied by a perfect, unknown, cheesy 80s soundtrack. I think there might have been some John Cafferty in there, but I'm not 100% sure. The best part of their films, 99% of the time you know what you are getting going in. Once in a while, I get in those moods where these types of moves are just what I want. Sometimes it's fun just to sit back and go with the flow. When that mood strikes and I want cheesy 80s nostalgia by the bucket loads, I pop in something like Cobra. Also, it's a lot of fun picking out all the actors you recognize from other films, many of them Cannon Film staples. This came out during the peak of Stallone mania. It's fun to revisit some of his lesser-known or loved films he put out in the mid-80s to early 90s. My rating of this one is a 5 out of 10. The IMDb rating on this is a 5.7 out of 10. Up next, for those of you who don't know who grew up with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I grew up with an animated versions of these films. And I'm going to review one of those right now. And that is 1980's Return of the King. The film was directed by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr. The runtime on this is 98 minutes, stars Orson Bean, John Huston, Theodore Bickel, and for those of you who grew up in the 80s and 90s, you'll recognize one voice, Mr. Casey Kasem. I watched this one on VHS. Synopsis. A hobbit faces the powers of darkness as he tries to destroy the Ring of Doom, based on J.R.R. Tolkien's novels. Wow, it's been a long time since I last watched this. Not since I was a kid, I do believe. I have fond memories of watching this, the animated version of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. When I stumbled upon this in my local media haunt on VHS, I immediately snagged it up. I've been waiting for the right time to watch, and that time finally came. The nostalgia factor is huge with this one, but I recognize there's a lot off about it upon my viewing. It still doesn't dissuade my love for it at all, but I noticed a lot of things that I overlooked as a kid. One of the big things is a blatant fact they explain everything instead of just letting it happen. Well, that's not horrible, it's kind of annoying. The songs are still catchy as hell, the animation has a simplistic beauty to it, and still looks gorgeous in my honest opinion. Now, I need to track down the animated version of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings on VHS so I can have both of them in that format. Not to mention, I'd love to watch it again. Although I did view that one a few years ago. I'd be curious as to what someone who's never seen these versions would think, especially if they're familiar with the Peter Jackson trilogy of live-action films. My rating on this is a 6.5 out of 10. The IMDb rating on this is a 5.7 out of 10. Up next, oh, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I love this movie, and that is 1988, The Blob.
If it had a mind, you could reason with it. If it had a face, you could look it in the eye. If it had a body, you could shoot it. Now, man is no longer the supreme being on this planet.
The organism is growing at a geometric rate. By all accounts, it's at least 1,000 times its original mass.
Nobody believes me about what happened tonight.
What did happen?
I want that organism alive.
I think you pissed it off.
The Blob. Terror has no shape.
This film was directed by Chuck Russell, has a runtime of 95 minutes, it is rated R, stars Shawnee Smith, Kevin Dillon, and Devin Leach Jr. I watched this one on DVD. Synopsis. In a tiny California town, high school students Brian, Meg, and Paul discover a strange gelatinous substance that melts the flesh of any living creature in its path. The deadly substance gets into the town's sewer system, where it begins growing uncontrollably, occasionally emerging to feast on unsuspecting townspeople. A military cleanup crew is sent to eliminate the menace, but it may end up doing more harm than good. I won't lie, this is an old favorite of mine. I haven't seen it in many years. I've always loved the hell out of the movie. My recent viewing only solidified my love for it. Frankly, I think this is a very underappreciated late 80s gem. The effects in this are mostly amazing. There are a few little hiccups where the age of some of the green screen type stuff is a little obvious, much like it is with the movie Gremlins in parts, but that doesn't hurt the film at all. I mean, it's a movie about a giant blob that destroys everything in its path. I can suspend my disbelief, but I will say that it's not noticeable from time to time. There are some brutal scenes in this where the effects really get to shine. I won't give it away for those of you who have never watched the film. The acting is pretty solid for what I'd consider a high-grade B movie. It also managed to very much keep the spirit of the original film, while adding a bit more of a modern ethos to it. I'm not screaming from the rafters that this is some form of a masterpiece cinema, but it hits all the right notes for what it is. Overall, it's one that has managed to stand the test of time for me. It's a simple, straightforward, cheesy sci-fi horror monster movie. It doesn't try to be anything that it's not, and that's why it works. My rating on this one is a 7.5 out of 10. The IMDb rating on this is a 6.4 out of 10. Now this one right here kind of has some controversy around it. And that is 2017's Ghost in the Shell.
I have been watching you. You have to remember.
I saw someone down there. He wasn't human.
He's a known terrorist, and he's killed again.
They didn't just kill them. They hacked into their minds.
He's everywhere and nowhere.
I will find him. And I will kill him.
You never talk about your past.
I don't remember much. Just fragments.
There was an attack.
You were dying. We saved you.
And now you save others.
Everything they told you was a lie. You had a family. Remember that.
But I...
What a beauty you are.
What do you want from me?
They did not save your life. They stole it.
How many were there before me?
She was supposed to have a clean brain. I order you to terminate.
They created me, but they cannot control me.
This film was directed by Rupert Sanders, has a runtime of 107 minutes, stars rated PG-13, stars Scarlett Johansson, Pilou Elsbeck, Takashi Kitano. I watched this one on DVD. Synopsis. In the near future, Major Motoko Kusanagi is the first of her kind, a human saved from a terrible terrorist attack, who is cyber-enhanced to be a perfect soldier devoted to stopping the world's most dangerous criminals. When terrorism reaches a new level that includes the ability to hack into people's minds and control them, Major Kusanagi is uniquely qualified to stop it. As she prepares to face a new enemy, Major Kusanagi discovers that she has been lied to. Her life was not saved, it was stolen. She will stop at nothing to recover her past, find out who did this to her, and stop them before they do it to others. This film is one that's had my interest since I first heard about them developing it. I know adapting anything from anime is one of those weird things like video game movie adaptations. You're treading on already established ground while trying to remain true to the story and spirit of the original, but at the same time breathing new life into what's already been established. I waited to see this simply for the reason the people I knew who had seen it were very disappointed. Most of them were huge fans of the original. Honestly, I've only seen the original film once, and that was years ago. Despite what I'd heard, I wanted to go in with an open mind. I really didn't have a lot of preconceived notions of what to expect other than what I remembered from the original. Visually, the film was spectacular. At least I thought so. The effects were very well done, and for what it was for a film, I didn't have any issues with it. I thought they got that aspect of it right. There were some good fight scenes, and the story itself flowed well. I had an issue with the fact that a good chunk of the main characters weren't Asian. It really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me in that aspect. While none of the actors' performances really bothered me, I think having the lead cast be mostly non-Asian was a mistake. Frankly, there was no reason for it. If they had changed it up a bit and set it in America, maybe it wouldn't have bothered me so much, but it seemed out of place. It threw a lot of the film off for me. Another thing I had an issue with was the fact, while this is a violent movie, it feels like they toned it down a lot. If you're going to do a film like this, go for broke. Don't hold back just to get a PG-13 rating. It also felt like that, from what I remember, they really didn't deviate too much from the original, but at the same time they kind of did. There wasn't anything new to add for those already familiar with it, and what they did make for changes made no sense. Even as long as it's been since I last viewed the original, there were several scenes that seemed almost shot for shot. In the end, I feel much the same way I did about the remake of Psycho and how they handled it. While it wasn't horrible, there really wasn't any need for it. Maybe if you weren't familiar with the original film at all, you would come away enjoying it more. But for those who've seen it, I'd say stick with the original. My rating on this one was a 4.5 out of 10. Probably closer to a 5, to be honest. The IMDb rating on this is a 6.4 out of 10. Up next, 1976's Grizzly.
Seems to know what we're thinking.
A grizzly is an animal, Kelly. Don't give it human qualities.
See, he doesn't understand that we're dealing with a highly intelligent beast.
This film was directed by William Girdler, has a 91-minute runtime, rated PG, stars Christopher George, Andrew Prine, Richard Jekyll. I watched this one on Amazon Prime. Synopsis: an 18-foot-tall grizzly bear terrorizes a state park, leaving it up to the ranger to save the day. This was one of those weird perfect timing things. I was scrolling through Prime trying to find stuff to add to my queue when I came across this. I was like, cool, a giant killer bear movie from the 70s? This could be fun. I've never heard about it before, to my knowledge, but the cover looked kind of cool. Even with a bit of a generic synopsis, the weird perfect timing part was right, because about that time, Eugene Weaver from the Movie Freaks podcast talked about it on their show. So it prompted me to bump it up on my list of films to check out sooner rather than later. Honestly, this movie was just what I needed. When I watched it, I was in one of those odd moods where I needed something cheesy and fun, but not too cheesy. This overflowed that fountain of plenty. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect film for my mood. This was obviously a cash grab after the mega success of Jaws. So much so that it more or less follows the same plot line, but on land with a bear. It manages to have just enough charm that you don't give a shit about the similarities. The effects aren't bad, but you can tell they used a lot of stock footage type stuff for the actual bear shots. I'm not 100% sure about this, but there's times where I'm pretty sure it's not a grizzly and it's a black bear or a brown bear, and the bear is definitely not 18 feet tall. But I digress. It's full of scratch your head moments and plot holes, but we're not talking about highbrow cinema here. It almost feels like it was a made-for-TV movie, maybe a drive-in type film, but not quite that level. It obviously had a little bit of a budget. I will be picking this one up at some point if I can find it for a reasonable price. The Amazon Prime version is widescreen and looks pretty crisp. So I'm assuming there is a restored version of it kicking around somewhere. This could become a staple in my yearly by yearly viewing list of films. While it's not even close to being a great film, I definitely enjoyed the hell out of it for what it was. If you like cheesy monster movies, think not quite Prophecy, the monster movie, but better than Food of the Gods. If you like those films, you will definitely enjoy this one. My rating on this was a 5.5 out of 10. The IMDb rating on this was a 5.3 out of 10. So that wraps up movie reviews, but I do want to talk a little bit about the second part of a documentary series I watched, and that is 2016's Planet Earth 2. It's rated TVG. There's 6 episodes. The run length's about 45 minutes, give or take. Narrated by David Attenborough, and I watched this on Netflix. This is the follow-up to 2006's Planet Earth documentary. This amazing and beautifully shot BBC doc is stunning, captivating, and educational. While I liked it just about as much as the first, some of it felt a little bit rehashed. I don't know if that's because maybe I have caught a few of these over the years, but I don't know. There were just a few parts here and there that I was like, Jesus, didn't we see that in the first series? Still, this is a much watch for anyone who loves nature documentaries and engaging educational material. This is a perfect watch for the whole family. Also, this is narrated by the amazing David Attenborough, who is right up there with Morgan Freeman on the list of people I could listen to talk all day and never get sick of hearing them speak. They just have those amazing, almost calming voices. And I don't think I can quite do it as well as they do. But, you know, I don't want to put you to sleep if I can, especially if you're listening to this podcast while you're driving. My rating on this is a 9 out of 10. The IMDb rating on this is a 9.4 out of 10. So that wraps it up for the Reviewcast part of the show. So right now, I want to talk about a few things. Coming up, there's going to be a special Valentine's Day episode of Average Joe's Drive-In. Now I know what my regular listeners are thinking. Really, a Valentine's Day episode of Average Joe's Drive-In? What the hell are you going to talk about? I've never heard you talk about romantic movies on here at all before. Well, let me tell you what. My good friend Dan Fleming from the Potato League podcast is coming on, and we basically are going to discuss romantic movies for people who hate romance movies, and give our top 20 in each category and kind of discuss those films. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. That will be released before Valentine's Day, so you want to tune in if you want to find something to listen to, something to watch that isn't, something horribly cliche and cheesy. And, I like a lot of romance in my action films. So, hey, I mean, a lot of action in my romance films. Yeah. So there's that. And also, starting at the end of this month, my good friend Peter Farrer will be joining me for a new monthly installment of Average Joe's Drive-In that I have been kind of wanting to talk about for a little while, but we've kind of been squaring around when we were going to do the episodes and kind of what we wanted to do. So what I'm going to, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up of what this is going to be about. Our first episode is going to be our personal top 5 favorite canon films. So we're going to discuss those films and what we liked about them and, why they're our favorites. We'll probably talk about some other stuff too. But this is going to be a monthly segment where Pete and I kind of hang out and talk films. We're going to try to pick a different subject each month to talk about. It's going to be varied and all over the place. It's going to be a lot of fun. For those of you who listen to the show, Pete did the Friday the 13th special with me back in October. And I've wanted to do a regular guest host on the show, so it works out great. I'm gonna have my best friend on. We're gonna talk movies, and it's gonna be a damn good time. And I look forward to doing that once a month. It works out good for us schedule-wise, and I can kind of keep everything else that I do going on, which I'm pretty excited about. Also, I just wanted to give a quick shout out and throw some podcasts out there that I really hope everybody will go check out. Maybe you've heard these, maybe you haven't. First of all, the Potato League podcast, which is a great podcast hosted by my good friends Dan Fleming and Tom Crosman. They talk about all things nerdy and entertainment, and it's a great show. Usually kind of long, between 2 and 3 hours. So, if you get a long commute, that is the show. The Movie Freaks, hosted by my friends Eric Marner and Eugene Weaver. It is probably my most anticipated podcast that I listen to every week. I always clamor for their episodes because those guys just work really great together, and they're funny as hell, and it's very enjoyable. And I always find out about movies I'd never heard of because they do dive into the bottomless pit of cinema to find those gems in the rough, as they like to say. It's a great show. The Joe Rogan Experience. I'm sure everybody out there on the planet knows about the Joe Rogan Experience, but it's a podcast I absolutely love, and one of the big reasons I started a podcast. Absolutely love that show. Horror Haven, another excellent horror movie podcast. They post at least once a week, sometimes more. They are definitely a very cool show, and I hope you go check them out. The Movie Crypt with Adam Green and Joe Lynch, one I just really have started getting into, and that is just awesome. They have interviews with all kinds of cool industry people, and it's fascinating, especially if you love movies like I love movies, or you want to get into filmmaking or acting. They have so much cool stuff on there. Like 240 or so episodes, I think, something crazy like that. So they've been doing it for a while, so there's a lot to listen to. Great show. Check that out. That's the Movie Crypt. Another excellent one is the Faculty of Horror with Alex West and Andrea Subasati. Some of the most intelligent, well-spoken ladies in horror. They know their shit. What they put into episodes is absolutely incredible. Go check that out. If you love horror and you like in-depth, it's like watching the behind the scenes of a film, or like a commentary track of people that enjoy the films, or just breaking them down. And the way they break down films is just absolutely incredible. So, check them out. Man, there's some more, and I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but How Did This Get Made is absolutely hilarious. Check that out. Also, check out my friends at Winter House Gaming. They have a podcast. If you like video game stuff, you want to check them out. They're up and going. There's so many cool podcasts out and about right now. It's hard to keep track of all of them, so I just wanted to give a shout out to the few that I enjoy, and there definitely is more than that, but those are a lot of the ones I enjoy and I listen to on a regular basis, so please go check them out and support those shows. And yeah, so as always, I want to thank my sponsors, the main Cannababes, who are just an amazing, awesome group of people doing some very cool things. As always, their website is down right now, but it goes back up today, I believe, February 1st. So go to maincannababes.com to find out all kinds of good information, resources, and things you might need to know or questions you may have to ask. There's also information on there about how you can become involved with the Cannababes, how you can support them. purchase something from the merch store, get a calendar, or just look for ways that you can become involved and help out the great charitable causes that they work with. Again, that's maincanababes.com. I want to thank everybody who listens to the show. You guys kick ass, and this wouldn't be possible without all of you, because it gives me a reason to do it. And, I'd probably do it even if I was talking to myself. And, right now, this is a Reviewcast. I am talking to myself. But I'm talking to you at the same time through the magic of audio. And, if you enjoy the show, please rate it on whatever app or site you happen to listen to it on. Those ratings help propel the show. You can check out Average Joe's Drive-In social media pages. Go to Instagram at Thomas Washburn Jr., Twitter, TWJ Author, Facebook, Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast. You can go to thomaswashburnjr.com and find everything, as well as links to other things that I enjoy, like authors, links to all my books. Go to amazon.com /author /Thomas Washburn Jr., or just type my name in the search bar, which is much simpler. And you can buy my books. By buying my books, you not only support the show, it helps me out, and you get something out of it. If you have Amazon Prime, I'm going to let you in a little secret. You can read my books for free if you have Amazon Prime. You're allowed so many a month. I still get something from that when you read it. So it still helps me out, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So, hey, you never know. You might enjoy it. There's horror. I do have a nonfiction book on there. There's a pile of shorts, 3 novels, 2 short story collections, my nonfiction book, and a pile of shorts. So if you have a Kindle, please go check those out. Support the show. I'm putting that money back into this podcast. I do need some equipment upgrades and stuff like that, because I really would like to expand a little bit more. But in order for me to do that, I need money to do it. And this is a hobby. It's a fun hobby, and I love doing it. So that any support you guys can give would be awesome. And like I said, if you have Prime, and let's face it, a good chunk of us have Prime. Like I said, you can read those books for free on Kindle or a Kindle app. If you don't have a Kindle, there is an app you can download on your tablet or phone. Works the same way. And you can read my books for free if you have the app, or if you want to just flat out buy it. They're cheap. Most of them are under $4. So, and the shorts are like 99 cents. So it helps me out, and it supports the show. And I've talked way too long about myself. Coming up, I have a lot of cool guests coming up in the next couple months. As always, I'm booked way ahead, and it always fills up so fast. And I am very much looking forward to all the cool guests I have coming in, and all the fun upcoming specials, Average Joe's Drive-In specials that will be on. And like I said, all those podcasts that I recommended, please go check them out and support them, and you may like them as much as I do. And thank you guys for listening. I am your host, TJ Washburn. You have been listening to Average Joe's Drive-In, and I will see you sexy animals on the flip side.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now.